Okay, we're live, Jackie. You can start.
Okay. Welcome to Voices of Refugees. This is a very special and important moment, and I want to welcome all of you who are here on our panel who are going to contribute today, your voices, your words, your experience, and all of you who are listening and wanting to connect to this very important part of our we world, our community, our family on earth. We're going to start today with the person who brought this idea to me, Dr. Ugoji A Eze, who's going to talk to us a little bit before we begin the world of our stories.
Thank you very much, Jackie. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. And also I'd like to shout out to Rick for 11 days of global unity and all the staff who's making this possible. I am Ugoji A Eze. I'm a former refugee over 50 years ago during the Nigeria Biafra crisis. The issue of refugees is very personal to me, and I'd like to say briefly a poem which basically sums it up. I give credits to the writer of this poem. I quote, "Who am I to speak of a time of families crushed, of crimes of mankind, of children in hiding and living in fear, of mothers trying to hide all their tears, of fathers praying to an empty heaven, of people dying again and again? Who am I to know what it was like to be persecuted by day and trapped by night, to be surrounded by a world turned upside down, to be starved and tortured and beaten to the ground, to witness a nation of hate marching past, to see all their dreams broken and shattered like glass? Who am I to mention their suffering and pain, the ghettos, the camps, life and death inhumane? I wasn't even born, I wasn't even there. It happened long ago, it could never happen here. Who am I to know what God had in mind when the virtues of men were buried alive, when good lost to evil and hope turned to despair, when hell upon earth seemed everywhere? Who am I to let their memories be forgotten, to say and do nothing as if it never happened, to forsake the loss of our Jewish family, to live in a world of complacency? As the world counts down to the International Day of Peace on the 21st of September, it is very important that we remember women, children in conflicts and war zones, and more particularly refugees. This year, the Secretary General of the United Nations has designated 2020's theme, Shaping Peace Together. We must have it at the back of our minds, the need for peace, the need to resolve the refugee crisis. As I said, I'm a former refugee of the Biafran War over 50 years ago. I see my function as my main goal as an NGO of the United Nations to give a voice to refugees, or as we say in Hebrew, Shema Kelenu, and also to heal a fractured world, Tekum Olam. As a refugee, there are certain questions which we need to ask. First of all, what do refugee children need more than anything else? From refugee to lawyer to author to a voice for refugees, that is what I have become. It is possible to accomplish something. And also, what do you think the international community can do? Could they do more for refugees? Do you think enough is being done? As we watch the Syrian refugee crisis, and more particular, the crisis in Yemen. Yemen is a forgotten crisis. We need to do more. More needs to be done. If I could have a wish as a refugee child, I wish for peace in this world. I wish there should no longer be conflict zones. I wish there should no longer be children of war. I was a child of war. And above all, to ask a refugee child and a child in conflict zone, what does war mean to you? And thank you so much, Jackie, for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you so much. That was so beautiful. We're going to now get into the part where we're going to be able to put our voices into words, into stories. This process is called the power of our stories. I discovered after 20 years of working with people from all walks of life, of all ages, in distress, powerful people, voiceless people, that everyone needs to tell their stories, and that our stories have great wisdom for everyone and for ourselves, no matter who the teller is. So as we engage in this process today, I'm also thinking of the refugee children, of all the people who feel they have no voice, they have no right to speak. Their words are not going to be heard. And I hope that in some way we can find a way to get these children the ability to tell their stories, to discover what is inside themselves, to learn to build their strength from inside, because even when conditions on the outside are terrible, we can have our own inner strength. But our children and our refugees need all our support to do this. So we're hoping that this is a step to doing that. So all of you who are here today and going to engage in this process, let me explain a little bit what it is. We're going to start with just a brief meditation to get quiet, to still our nerves. And then I'm going to ask you to pick up your pen or your keyboard and just write for 5 minutes. It doesn't have to be about anything. It doesn't have to make sense. It's a way of loosening up, as if you were loosening up to do a sport, just getting those writing muscles relaxed. You can act as if your hand is doing the writing and you sit back. That's a way to invite your deeper stories in. After that, I'm going to give you a little story exercise to write. We're all going to do it. And I hope in that story, you'll discover something interesting and maybe even beautiful about yourself that you've never had a chance to celebrate. So let's all begin by getting quiet. Take a deep breath. Close your eyes if you wish. Let your breath go all the way down inside you. Take a long exhale. And everyone who is listening, please follow this, follow along, and be in class with us. And now just follow your breath.
Mm.
Bring yourself slowly back. When you're ready, pick up your pen and write. Let the words spool out of your hand. And that's 5 minutes. I hope you're feeling a little relaxed now. Ifanel said it was like we're going to take an exam. You all have passing grades already. Okay, here's the topic. And I think Riel is going to put it on the chat so you can listen. You can start to write before I even finish reading the topic to you, or you can wait and let it just give yourself a few moments. Probably the first idea that comes to you is going to be your best idea. So here it is. You can use as many of these parts of the topic that work for you. If a whole different topic occurs to you, go with that. This is the opposite of school. You don't have to follow the rules. Let the story that wants to be told tell itself on the page, just like you did the 5-minute writing. This is really about discovering something. So here's the topic. Tell the story of a moment in your life or an experience in your life that deserves to be honored. It may be a story you've told 100 times or one you've never given voice to. It may have happened when you were very little or something more recent. When in your life did this moment occur? What was the weather like? What was the geography? In what time did this moment occur? In what place? How did this moment come to you? What was it that happened? What did you feel, do, or say as it was occurring? What did you see in that moment? What did you hear, touch, smell? How does this moment live within you? What does it have to give you? What do you understand now about this moment that you didn't understand at the time? If you'd like to use a color in your story, try the color silver. If some other color occurs to you, use that. If you'd like to use a sound, try a drum. If you'd like to use a texture, something that's soft. Do this in any form that feels right, a poem or a story. We're going to put the topic on the chat right now. And if you're watching, please write this story yourself. Raise your hand if you need some more time to write. Okay. We'll take another minute or two and then bring it to a conclusion. Okay, very good. If you're a writer, I know this is not enough time for you. This is actually, you could write a whole book about this. Moments in your life that deserve to be honored. We have so many, and so often we never even talk about it, and we don't even realize it. So I hope we're going to get to hear some today. Would you please unmute yourselves? This is the always most difficult part of this kind of a process. The first time people are together and they are going to share their stories. I know some of you don't want to share, and maybe you didn't even think you were going to have to, and you don't have to. This is a choice. But I do want you to get a chance to hear people who feel moved to share their experiences. And I also want you to get a chance to tell the writers how their stories affected you. There is a kind of lovely process that I've used for doing this that help people know what to say to a writer. So I'm going to ask you to write these 5 things down. They also work really well in just a human relationship. After a writer reads today, see if you can tell him or her what you heard that you found beautiful. What you heard that was moving to you. What you heard that was courageous. What you heard that was inspiring. And finally, what the writer wrote that you really needed to hear. These are wonderful gifts to give to a writer because we never know what we've written. We usually are criticizing ourselves. And we need wonderful listeners who are listening from the heart who can tell us what they've heard. Of course, if there's anything else you'd like to say to the writer, feel free to do that. Okay. So we are listening now from the heart, and we are responding from the heart. Okay. Is there anybody who'd like to read their story? Anybody who feels moved to share what they've written? Or you might want to just get it over with and read your story and then listen to others. Just raise your hands so I can see if we have any volunteers. Thank you. Okay, Ugoji is going to read first.
Thank you very much, Jackie, for this wonderful workshop. I found myself going to places where I never thought I would go. If I could read my story, the moment in time that deserves to be told, I believe it will go back to 1967, the Nigeria-Biafra War. I instinctively remember the day as a small girl when war was declared. Whenever I hear classical music, Mozart, Beethoven, or Tchaikovsky, it takes me back to the day war was declared, because on that day, classical music was played. Then as soon as the classical music ended on the radio, we were addressed by the late Ojukwu, in which he said that we were at war. I particularly remember that day because I was actually on my way to being driven to school, All Saints School in Enugu, but we were told at the last moment that we could not go to school. I remember seeing the driver and the security and my nursemates. There was a look of immense fear on their faces, and they were trying to hide it from us. I remember that we then were allowed to go outside to play. That was indeed a defining moment in my life, because as from that day, I woke up a free person. And by the close of day, I was an internally displaced person. I was a child of war. If there's any word that could be said that resonates to me today, it is, I quote, "We are at war." That moment, which will live within me, I could then say that it has become according to the Psalm 91, it's become my secret place of the Most High, where it takes me back to that particular moment in time. What has that moment given to me? It has given me strength in the years that have passed. It has given me an inner peace. It has given me power. It has given me determination. What do I feel at that particular moment, which I do not know now, which I did not know that particular point? I would say that particular moment has defined my life. It has given me a goal. It has given me a purpose. So that particular moment in time, it could either break you or it could either make you. It is very difficult to, as a young child of 7 years old, to wake up in a free country, and by the close of day, you're internally displaced, and a year later, you become a refugee when you cross the border. It's quite interesting that you mentioned the color silver. I was quite taken aback when you said that, Jackie, because the color silver still has an effect upon me, and more particularly as a internally displaced child at that particular point in time. Silver reminds me of the aircrafts, the airplanes of the enemy that were flying over us in Biafra. There was always a silver streak that would go through when the enemy plane has flown over, when any plane is surveilling to throw bombs, to drop bombs on us. as a plane goes over, you suddenly see that silver streak in the sky. So it's quite touching that you reminded me of that color silver. And I remember thinking to myself, why did she say silver? Now the sound of drum, that's quite prophetic. That's quite moving. That's quite touching, because whenever I hear the sound of drum, to me, it's a declaration of war. It is a declaration of war. And again, it takes me back to the classical music that was being played on Radio Biafra when we were being told we are at war and God bless us and may God protect us. You're talking about a texture, soft texture. The soft texture to me reminds me of the soft garment my nanny wore that day. And as she's embracing me and reassuring me, Miss Ugoji, everything will be all right. But at the same time, I could see the fear in her eyes. I could see the fear in her eyes. I could see the fear in the security guards' eyes, because on the one hand, they're trying to reassure us that everything is okay, that we can go out to play, that maybe tomorrow we'll go to school. But deep down, I knew that our life had changed that day. I knew that things will never be the same. And in a strange sense, although I was a 7-year-old child, I suddenly realized that life will never be the same, and that I was a child of war, and that we were internally displaced, and that I will never go to school for a while. So at that particular point in time, it's a moment in time that deserves to be shared. It's a moment in time that deserves to be revisited. There's so many refugees, internally displaced people who lock it up in their mind, and they do not want to go there. They do not want to remember that moment in time. But I'd like to say at this juncture that I'm proud to be a refugee. I'm proud to have been an internally displaced person. It has indeed built my character. It has given me an opportunity to let the voices of refugees, internally displaced persons, and migrants, to be their voice and to give them an opportunity through me at the United Nations in New York. Thank you so much, Jackie. And thank you for your good work.
So much for that. Would somebody like to speak about what they just heard? Samuel, do you have your hand raised? Beautiful, moving, courageous, inspiring. David, make sure you're unmuted. I know we can't quite hear you, David.
I think you will have to readmit him as a panelist.
No, he just has to be
as an attendee. You won't be able to hear him.
Oh, he's not.
Yeah, he is registered here as an attendee.
Oh, Brielle, can you register David as a panelist, please? While we're doing this, is there someone else who would like to respond to Ugoji writing?
I will.
Oh, thank you, Myra.
You know, you had this reference several times about how kind of like your life just changed in a minute. You went from a free person to a child of war. And every time you expressed it a little differently and beautifully. And I needed to hear that, how things forever.
I can't hear you very well because there's a noise in the background.
Oh,
it's not yours. It's from somewhere else. I don't know. It may be,
Maybe I'll put it in
You
the
may-
chat and then someone else can read it.
Could you mention John Mark?
you may need to mute the attendees.
everyone is muted.
No, there's a person, John Mark. He's not muted. I think the noise is coming from there.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay, I'll
Yeah.
mute John. Let's see.
Yes.
You were right. Okay. Yes.
I was very moved by all your references to how your life changed in an instant. One moment you were free, one moment there was classical music, and then the next there was war. And you said it several different ways and at different times, and each time it moved me even more to experience with you how your life could change forever in an instant. Quite beautiful.
Well, thank you, Myra. Yes, you're absolutely correct, because could you imagine yourself in that situation? You go to bed the night before, you wake up, you're expecting to go to school, and just as you're about to leave the house and go into the car to be driven to school, you suddenly sense a commotion around you. I can particularly remember the driver and the nannies, they're sort of exchanging looks, and they have this immense fear in their eyes, and they're trying to hide it from us. Then I'm suddenly saying, oh, let's go. And they say, no, Mrs. Ugoji, you cannot go. Then everybody's suddenly going towards the radio, and we suddenly hear classical music, and all morning classical music has been played. And then the then head of state comes on and says, we're at war. And to me, a 7-year-old child, I did not understand what war meant. All I could equate with war is the fact that I'm not going to school that day. I'm not going to play with my friends, and everybody's looking extremely distressed. Everybody's nervous, and the nannies, some of them, they're trying hard not to cry. And you're suddenly, the driver's suddenly left, and the house is suddenly being surrounded by security, and you're wondering what's going on. It's extremely difficult to explain to a young child what war means. I mean, the question I always ask, the question you should ask a child, a refugee, an internally displaced child, or a migrant is, what does war look like? What does war mean to you? It's a difficult question to ask, and it's also very difficult. The responses you'll get back from children will vary. But to me, war, at that particular point in time, war meant classical music, not being able to go to school, not being able to play with my friends, having to be quiet, and seeing the fear which was registered on my nanny's faces. There was always this, they were extremely nervous and they looked so afraid. So and also from a personal point of view, whenever I hear Mozart, Chopin, Tchaikovsky, it takes me back to Biafra. It takes me back to that day when for weeks on end, all day, it was just classical music. Then it was being interrupted by a statement from the then head of state, or just basically keep on telling us we're at war. So that's, whenever I hear that word, we're at war, it takes me back. It takes me back to that particular moment in time.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And it also, the courage, I know you have studied and you have taken bar exams and you fight for big things for us in your life. But it takes another kind of courage to share that experience of your vulnerable 7-year-old self. And it makes me grateful, because it makes us think about what children take in Children know what is going on, whether we tell them or not. And we think of these children all over the globe who are feeling so much fear, whether they can see the reason for it, whether it's blatant. What do we do with children who are afraid? How can we now make them what? Many of you do work with these children. I'd really like to hear from you. What is it that we can do? Does anyone have a thought about this, particularly our refugee children? Yes, Mufaddal, will you unmute yourself?
I sort of am relating to what Ugoji experienced when she was 7 years old. I was 12 years old at that time during the 1965 war between India and Pakistan. Okay, and very, very similar experiences, as, all of a sudden the life got sort of disturbed and, all normality was gone from the life and no school. And I was sort of, at that time also boosting everybody up. We were enjoying all the national music, of coping with this, kind of an experience. So we experienced that. And my story also sort of is related to Ugoji's story when, my father migrated, in 1947. And I started learning social entrepreneurship when I was 4 years old. Because he migrated and then he helped all other refugees who came from India. And just to be what I am today, I experienced another, episode in my life when I completed my engineering, and we decided to take a hike or a, walk, a pleasant walk to Kashmir, during our industrial, trip. And I firsthand experience, how close a person can come to death. Because we walked 12 hours, pleasant walk to, Muzaffarabad. From Muzaffarabad, we decided to catch a bus. After 4 hours of, journey in stormy weather, the bus stopped. In front of us, the road was washed out. Okay. And everybody was just simply, expecting that a mudslide would come and the bus would go in the river. Okay. So they lost all hope. So I sort of encouraged them at that time also that fine, enjoy the night, pray, and, we will plan something out in the morning. So I spent the night planning that whole journey, climbing the mountain. Okay. And we survived those slides and, thanks to, about 12 people who are helping each other out to decide to, take that adventure. We did that. And then what I experienced after we were actually, we survived that, the real hospitality and the real, life of the people of Kashmir. Poorest people, they were very, very hospitable and helpful for us. So I have seen firsthand the kind of life which people in Kashmir or people in villages, people who are oppressed and, all the time lives. They've got big heart. They are very, very simple, honest people. And, from that point onwards, we decided that we need to really help all these people out, enjoy the life which God has given to us. We were very privileged, and from that point onwards, the journey continued. I completed my bachelor's in engineering, went to Detroit, Michigan, experienced all kind of things in Detroit, as a international student. Life in Detroit appeared to be worse than life in Kashmir sometimes, in downtown Detroit. Then another experience was obviously in Chicago, another, place where a lot of these, things are happening. A lot of refugees are there. And idea behind the whole concept was that the strength which I was getting to do all the things which I want to do is that the benchmark refugee, when I study all the refugees, was our prophet. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he migrated from Makkah to Medina, okay, and he developed a model of how refugees and should lead their life. They were all refugees. People in Medina helped them out, so it's a Medina sort of a refugee helper model. We are all social entrepreneurs helping the refugee out, so we call ourselves Ansars. And the people who actually migrated with the Prophet, were Muhajirs, and they worked together to enjoy a total quality life. So this is the whole diversity model which we can experience today by really making sure that everyone is important and everyone should be, having a dignified, total quality life, because they are created by God Almighty. They are the fellow human beings. And if you want to maintain the kind of blessings you have today, you need to make sure that all other people are also enjoying the same quality of life.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Beautiful. Is there anybody else who would like to read? David, are you in? Good. Thank you so much.
I was going to say something regarding what Ugoji read, and the beauty of the prose and the courage to share the experience in terms of a vivid recollection. There are many people who wouldn't be able to recall that story. And just the fact that she's able to recall and present it in such a way that shows poise, courage, is something to be appreciated and something to be applauded as well. Just drawing the line between going from one spectrum, one quality of life, and all of a sudden everything changed to something else. It's really incredible. And we know of many refugees who do not have that capability, who do not have the infrastructure, the support to be able to tell this story. They tell horror stories of horror. And for us to also understand that horror does not always mean something that is bad. An experience to one could be that, because now she mentioned when she hears Musad classical music, it takes her back to that time, and what that's supposed to do is to cause a traumatic event or incident, but she's able to address it and articulate it in such a way that it made her who she is today. So I really want to say thank you for that story.
No, thank you very much, Ifeanyi. Thank you so much.
Final, I would like to ask you a question about the children who only see horror, what do you think about them telling their stories? Do you think that it's important for them to be able to give voice to that? You just need to unmute, yeah.
Okay, say that again.
What do you think of the children who have only horror, the refugee children who do not have had the privileges that Ugoji and Mufadal have had? What about the children you spoke of? Do
Okay.
they?
Right. Those children need to also have voices. Hearing what Ugoji stated and Mufada also will give them that courage to know that no matter the situation, however, we have to give them the tools and the platforms
Yes.
to be able to climb out. When you hear Ugoji's story, Mufada's story, and some others, there's somebody who acted as a good Samaritan, who interceded, who gave that bridge, built that bridge to cross over. Somebody who put themselves in a situation where they can see what was going on. Now, those are the things that we have to do for those children also. We have to be able to help them build that bridge so they can tell their own story as well, have their own beautiful experience. We need to be able to let them know that. And that is a collective effort. And that brings me to saying one thing. I really did not want to say it. I detest the hypocrisy of some of us who have enjoyed the largesse of not understanding that certain things, some people, are suffering, and we have the gall, the impetus to deny them the basic necessity of life, just building a bridge to help them move from point A to point B, forgetting that regardless of our economic status, somebody, someday, yes, I may be successful. My parents may have been successful. However, I studied under somebody else. A teacher taught me. A professor taught me. I did not become wise. I did not become superly intelligent just on my own. I met somebody.
I think we just lost Ifano's voice. Yeah. And isn't that what we are doing? This is part of what we, the world, is doing. And all of us who are joining in the world of we are all responsible for each other. Easy to say, but many.
Jackie, just a thought of your question, which you
Yes.
just posed, okay? What we should be
Wait, excuse me just a moment, Mafadal. I want to finish because I need to bring somebody else in who's been waiting to read, but thank you. Yes, I'm trying to give everybody a voice today. Yeah, so this is why we are here, we the world, and this is to give voice to everybody and to hear this and to move into action in our world in this way. So thank you so much. Somebody else had a hand raised to read?
It was David.
Okay.
Hello.
David, are you ready? Wonderful. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you very much, Jackie. I appreciate this privilege to be here, and I'm so excited to see all the beautiful faces here. Yeah, we are together for this assignment, and we can. We chose to be here not just to show our face, but we chose to be here to show our face to the children that they have another face looking upon them. But before I tell my story in brief, I want to come into what Dr. Ugoji said, and also what Ifeanyi said, and what Mufada Mizza, what he said. Somebody gave them courage. There was somebody who gave them courage and built the bridge. Somebody covered that vacuum that was created. Whether we believe this or not, there is definitely a vacuum in every child, all. Not even one is left behind, because they are human beings. They have mind to think. They have that ability to imagine what is happening around me. Then this question is in their inside. Many of them grow up with this question, and they have no. they have no opportunity to ask anybody for an answer. So they need somebody who will stand by them and tell them, this is not you. What is happening to you is not you. The real you is in your inside. This thing is just an occurrence. This is not the real definition of you. This pain is not a definition. This anxiety is not a definition. These gunshots you are hearing is not the definition of the earth. The bombs you are hearing is not a definition of the earth. The definition of the earth is inside of you. Now, before I tell my story in brief, I'm going to say this story I read from Max Morrow. Max Morrow is a preacher and he's a writer of blessed memory. He told of a story of a lion cub that was caught by a hunter, and they brought it to the house. He brought it to the house while he was rearing his sheep. While he was rearing the cub, the little lion began to grow with the sheep. That little lion began to grow with the sheep. Then it became a big lion. And while they go, the lion chose to eat grass with the sheep. But the hunter, knowing that this is not a sheep but a lion, once in a while brings bones, meat, raw meat for the lion to eat. But the lion chose to eat grass with the sheep. But a time came while they went grazing, while they went to get some water, while they were grazing, the lion discovered there was a roar of another lion over there, over the other side. And the shepherd tried to make sure that the lions were, the sheep were safe. It brought out its gun, waiting to save the sheep and even the lion. But this lion was like, no, the other lion that is rolling looks like me. What is going on? Then the shepherd was looking. Hello?
Yes, we hear you now.
All right. The shepherd was looking at the lion, the other lion, the way it was reacting like, this is like the other person is me. This is the sheep said, this I know me, this is where I belong. It began to look with the time, even where the sheep were hiding, the shepherd was hiding, the lion left them and ran down to go and meet the other lion. It wasn't scared. This is called self-identification, self-discovery. Now these kids have been taken away from where they belong, from their culture, from the place where they will be taught who they are, to another place entirely. So they need somebody to help them define who they truly are, that what is happening is not their true identification. 1991, I was in the IDP camp. All I knew was my mom came back, she rushed open the gate, she ran into the compound where we were trying to prepare what she was selling. So she came in and everybody should run into the house. We should run into the house. We began to hear gunshots. We began to hear some kind of rioting. People were singing like war songs, perhaps. We were singing outside. So we ran into the house. I actually remember I ran under the bed. We're hiding. Then mom began to pray. As her usual life, she was praying, we were pleading the blood of Jesus, was praying, not our hair, we are not going to die, oh God, cover. And the father was not there. It was just my mom and my siblings. Then we began to hear siren. We believe it was the siren for the police coming around. My mom rushed outside, other people rushed to check. It was the police, the mobile police, but the youth drove them again with stones, with whatever they went far away. Then the other police people who were having a station close by came. They took us into the police station. We were at the police station, but still the youth were coming. They were like, we're going to kill the police people. We're going to burn down the police station and what have you. So we were running towards where the mobile police were with the truck. While we were running, they came to us. So they said, go in, go in. So with the kids were just like, as if we were thrown like bags into the truck. Like they have to do that very fast before those boys and what have you comes in. Mom was pushed into the truck. That was the beginning of our journey to the IDP camp. There were already thousands of people there already waiting. So we're given a canopy where we could stay. So many questions I want to ask my mother. So many. What is going on? Who is killing who? Oh, I forgot. While we're moving on the road, we could see dead bodies on the road. We could see dead bodies on the street. And we couldn't just ask. Everybody was like, keeping quiet. We can't ask any question. We find ourselves in the IDP camp. We're there for months. For months, we found ourselves there. We found a new life that nobody was explaining to us. We just have to adapt to the new system. We just have to always join the line for food. We have to join the line for water. We have to join the line for clothing. Sometimes the clothing are not for children, adults, big clothes, shirts, big shoes, big clothes. We just put them on. To us, it's fun. With wearing big shoe and big trousers and big top, it was fun. But definitely there were some times there were no food. Mom have to struggle. Mom have to do things. She kept all the night she must pray. All the night she was tell us, we kneel down and pray for the country, for everybody, both those who have lost their families, those who have lost. We could see people crying every day because they killed their father or they killed a member of their family. They keep crying. So sometimes we go to beg them, it's okay, everything will be all right. So that is my experience that I will not forget. But all I knew, I found my identity through Christ. If you ask me, how did I come to have my self-discovery of myself? I found when we left the camp, definitely there was time we left the camp. When everything calmed down, we left the camp, then going to church, trying to understand the love of Christ, loving our I'll call them enemy in quotes, but we have to love them. We have to pray for them. We have to move on. That there are people who influenced my life, and I have his book around here. This is Bishop C.D. Jakes. From my teenage age, I began to, from my teenage age, I was reading this book. And you could see here, strength for men, solutions for women. Then there's something that, I have this book for a long time. And it says there, even strong men struggle. Oh, that no matter how strong you are, you struggle to win. Then another person that I know that have brought a big challenge to me is Ben Carson. You have a brain. These books began to mold me. What my father could not tell me, what my father could not teach me, because every young boy needs a father. Every young girl needs a mother. So what I couldn't get from my late father, I was getting from these books. Then in Nigeria, I have this book. This book was sent to me from the US, from the United States. My odyssey by Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe. So these are some of the books. What God starts, He finishes. This is Richard Branson. Yeah. So these are the books that began to mold my person. I began to read how they came from low to high, how they came up from obscurity to fame. And I chose, this book has influenced me. I'm not going to keep it to myself. I am going to the IDP camp, not just the IDP camp, any environment I know that these young men need someone to talk to them. I'm ready. I have started it. I've met these people in the IDP camp. I've spoken to them. We've sang together. We've played together. And I tell them, the real you is in your inside. Not what the government say about you, not what the society say about you, not what the environment say about you, but what you say to yourself.
Thank you. Thank you so much, David. Thank you.
Thank you.
It is so wonderful that we have been hearing stories, lives from people who were refugee children who discovered through their experience such strength that they want to share. This is really beautiful. We have a few more minutes left. Is there anybody who would like to read maybe a little piece of their 5-minute writing before we conclude today? I don't see any hands. Okay. All right, Ugoji, you wanted to, you wanted to speak before we?
I just wanted to say something. It's
Yeah.
really flowing on from what Ifeanyi said about a good Samaritan. You know, there's a saying, there's a Hebrew saying that when you save a life, you save a whole generation. I had several good Samaritans. I had several people who basically saved my life so that I will be here today to share my story. And first and foremost, I'd like to thank the State of Israel. It was actually Israeli pilots who flew us out of Biafra. Our flight was the last flight from Uturu airstrip. We flew out on a cargo plane, just about 4 seats. So I wouldn't be here today to share my story, but for the government of Israel. Secondly, I'd like to thank a very young diplomat in Portugal who was very instrumental in allowing the Biafran refugees to have asylum in Portugal. We flew out from Biafra, we flew to São Tomé, we flew to Abidjan. Most countries in Africa did not recognize Biafra, but they said we could land to fuel the plane, but go on. So the Israeli pilots flew us, thanks to a young diplomat who was very instrumental in allowing the Biafrans to enter. We flew to Portugal, where we lived for a year. Now, the young diplomat will not be dismayed if I mention his name, because we have discussed this issue a few years ago. The young diplomat is currently the Secretary General of the United Nations. He was a young diplomat in Portugal in the 60s in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. He saw the injustice, what was happening in Biafra, and he allowed the first batch of Biafran families to land. I did meet the Secretary General a few years ago. He was actually my boss when I was an intern at United Nations High Commission for Refugees. I met him one day on the road in 2nd Avenue. I remember going up to him and starting a conversation. I remember telling him, "Thank you for what you did for me." And he looked at me. I said I was one of the Biafran refugee child who you allowed into Portugal. I'd like to thank the government of Portugal for what they did for the Biafran refugees. And also, if I conclude by saying that I believe the best way to remember this, to share our voices, to let our voices be heard, as the saying says, Shema Koluna, is never to forget. Never to forget the lives we left behind. Never to forget the defining experiences that made us, or made me particular, who I am. Not to forget the dreams of long ago of how I might change the world. Tikkun Olam. And above all, to make the world a better, fairer, more spiritual, beautiful place for all. I'd also like at this juncture to remind the world of the ongoing humanitarian crisis in Yemen. Let us not forget the women, and more particularly the children of Yemen. Thank you very much.
Thank you all so much. We have heard the voices of refugees. We have felt them. Thank you all of you who came from all over to share this with us today and with the world. Thank you, we. Thank you, Rick. Goodbye. Oh, I just heard from Brielle. We have a few more minutes. Is there anybody who'd like to say anything informally?
Yeah, Jackie, can I just say something right quick? I'm
Please.
sorry I got disconnected. I
Hi,
came at the end of David's thing, and I'm very encouraged by what we're doing and everything else. One or two things I really want to say is whatever we can do to ensure peace, we should all do it. And also, woe to those who profit at the backs of the plight and sufferings of young children, young women, young men who profit from them, who through the sufferings build houses, drive big cars, train their children in the guise of doing whatever. Either they're selling ammunitions to the other party, killing other people, or those who just set up shop to feed these children food that are not even nutritious and collect so much money without making an impact in their lives. I think we need to begin to address some practical things that will give these young children the platform to become successful, the platform to be able to tell their stories, the platform to become the next lawyer, the next medical doctor, so that wherever country they go into, they still have their self-esteem, not looked at and debased. I believe there should be a call to action. I am pleading with everyone on this panel and everyone listening. It is time for us to stop talking about these things. It is time for us to provide solutions and also give solutions to those children so they can also help solve the problems also. I really, my hat goes out to Ugoji and David for sharing their story. Mufada, you know, is a success story. And I think we need to continue sharing this story so that those Rwandan children who came here with their parents, you know, I looked at a certain group. You see a man, a woman, 1, 2, 3, you put them together, they become a family unit. You send them here for 3 years. Nobody's even making the effort to try to teach them the language so they can fit in. You know, they walk around and people look at them, oh, look at them, and make them feel like they're not even welcome, like they're not even human beings. So from today, we have refugees not created by reason of war. We also have refugees created by reason of poverty. Make them refugees. Refugees created by reason of hatred. So we need to start filling this gap and building bridges. Thank you very much.
Very beautiful. Thank you so much. Yes. Yeah, David, did you want to say something? I thought David raised his hand.
Just a solution which Ifeani just mentioned. Solution is simple, okay, that we should really urgently remove all these vulnerable children, young people, silently from the society, because currently they are being abused. It's a whole mafia out there. What just Ifeani mentioned is that, you know, they are currently being abused. So if we can silently remove them from where they are, and you know, the V.net program which Heidi started was 2 billion mothers being enabled so that they can teach in Wheel of Life Palm School and they can adopt a child. The 2 billion people can be taken care of. So just a solution wise, we need to think about it that, okay, we have raised the voice today. Now we should be silently taking care of the solution part so that these children are no longer available to be abused wherever they are. That's a thought, just a thought, okay? Each person just takes care of and adopts one child.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Jackie, if I may say something. I've talked the talk and walked the walk. I actually have started a refugee initiative It's called Sticks and Stones Refugee Educational Initiative. And it's basically, the mission is promoting excellence in refugee education. And the vision is by supporting refugee children and youth with mentoring opportunities and educational resources, and also to breaking down stereotypes and xenophobia against refugees. With the ongoing refugee crisis, more particular, the Syrian refugee crisis and the Yemenis refugee crisis, there's a tendency for the emergence of Islamophobia, hatred of Muslims. We have to break that down. And also the initiative will encourage refugee children to strive for excellence and fulfill their full potential. I was a refugee child. If I can do it with the right nurturing, another refugee child can also do it. And also to achieve their full potential through creative writing, such as this, writing workshops, and encourage life learning skills through music, arts, and sports, and basically to promote the learning of refugee children and youth at all levels, and to achieve this UN Sustainable Development Goals of 2020, and also Africa Agenda 2063. So I encourage all to join me in this initiative for the educational empowerment of refugee children. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is the official beginning of that, the public announcement. Yes, David. You need to unmute, just unmute.
Okay. All right, thank you, sorry. While Dr. Ugoji was speaking, something came to my mind. She just made there's a word that I actually wrote. I thought I'm going to express it, but this where the style of presentation was like we should write a story. But I'll bring just one word from what she said that I actually prepared for this program. She talked about talent. Talent is one thing that can help the kids in the camp, because right now, like as I'm speaking right now, their mind is void. Their heart is just void. They are just waiting for anything that you bring into their mind. Anything you just bring into their mind, they are just ready, whether positive or negative. While the other people are preparing their enterprise, we can also prepare our enterprise. While they are preparing to go by night, we go in the morning before the night. To build the mindset of these kids, like football, computer training, ability to read, different kind of competitions. Speaking, most of these children don't speak English. English is a global language. They need the ability to translate their local language wherever they are in the part of the world to English language, to understand what is happening around them. They need to hear the story of Ben Carson. It might not be this particular book, but we can rewrite it in a way whereby it can be translated into their language to understand that Ben Carson had issues. Their issues were they are refugees. Ben Carson wasn't a refugee, but was a boy who had a deficiency in education. So theirs is also a deficiency in self-identity. So there are so many things these kids need to understand who they are. They could hear stories of other young children, like the story of Ugoji can be shared to them.
I'm so sorry, David. I have to stop you because our time is up and so there is another panel coming in. But thank you very much for speaking of that great need. Very, very good. Thank you all. Thank you all so much for sharing and for being here with us today.
Thank you for your leadership, Jackie.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.
We'll all meet again because
We
we're just
will.
starting. This is just the beginning.
All right.
Yes.
All right.
Shayna Tova.
To all.